If you guys are looking to gain an edge in your upcoming fantasy football draft, then I have the perfect video for you today. We're about to go over 7 ways to get an advantage over your friends that will finally help you win that fantasy football trophy that you so rightfully deserve. Number 1 on this list, if you know where you're going to be drafting ahead of time. Let's say you end up with the first overall pick. You guys do a home run derby. You do a 3-point contest for your draft pick order. You come in first place. You're absolutely dominant in sports. You got Justin Jefferson on your team. Congratulations. But you don't really know who you're going to pick in rounds 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 6 and 7, so forth. So what I would do is go on your favorite website, whatever website the league is being hosted on, whether it's ESPN, whether it's Yahoo, Sleeper, does not matter. Do about 10 to 20 mock drafts from that position and write down about 4 to 5 players that are available on the turn for you in every single round. So as the first overall pick, for an example, rounds 2 and 3, you would write down at least 4 to 5 players that you wouldn't mind taking in that section. Then rounds 4 to 5, you would write down about 4 to 5 players in that section that you wouldn't mind taking. This will ensure that you always have a backup plan just in case the person in front of you snipes you, all right, and takes the guy that you want. You don't want that happening. You don't want to be flustered and have no clue what to do when it gets up to be your second or third pick. So this is a perfect thing to do, and you will never be caught off guard, trust me. Number 2, drafting a wide receiver or a tight end, and then the quarterback of that same team. The example that comes to mind off the bat is, of course, you get Justin Jefferson with the first overall pick. Later on in the draft, wouldn't be a bad idea to take Kirk Cousins. If you pick Travis Kelce with your first pick, might not be a bad idea to take Patrick Mahomes. Same thing with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Same thing with Tyreek Hill and Tua at the very end of your draft. I know Tua goes very late, so that's not the best example, but you guys know what I mean. You're going to get 4 points for the passing touchdown for the quarterback if you play him. You're going to get 6 points for the wide receiver touchdown when they score, not to mention any extra PPR points, the yardage added for throw, and the yardage added for the catch for the receiver. So it's a minimum of 10 points in most leagues if that person catches a touchdown for your team. So it's a perfect scenario. You're making less bets overall because let's say you have Joe Burrow on your team and then you're starting Tyreek Hill. There's no guarantee that both of them are going to play well. Let's say if Joe Burrow throws a touchdown, Tyreek Hill's not benefiting from that at all. But if you have Jamar Chase on your team and Joe Burrow, that's an immediate 10 points for your fantasy team, and you're just lowering your amount of bets and improving the probability that you'll be correct, hopefully. Number 3, I would at least prioritize getting 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers throughout the first 5 or 6 rounds of your fantasy football draft. Listen, guys, do not wait too long to take running backs or you're not going to get a good one at all. I found that rounds 3 and 4 actually offer the best value personally for me at running back if you don't get one in the first 2 rounds. I like a lot of guys in that range like Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker. Those are all solid options. I know Dalvin Cook signed to the Jets. I know Zeke signed to the Patriots, but I'm talking about overall skill level. These guys are great talents. If you want to go running back, wide receiver, I don't have a problem with it. If you want to go wide receiver, then running back, I don't have a problem with it. And if you want to go wide receiver, running back, I also don't have a problem with that as well. You're most likely not going to get away with going wide receiver, unless you have an early round pick. Unless you're about pick 1 through 3, then it's going to be very hard to get you a solid running back in that 3rd and 4th round range. So just keep that in mind. Number 4 on this list is a little bit of a sneaky one. I would personally take a risk on players who are out a few weeks and they lose a ton of value. We're talking about guys in the past couple of weeks like Joe Burrow, Kenneth Walker, who was unhealthy. They're both back at practice right now, and people got steals on those players because everybody's fear should be your best friend in fantasy football. If people are scared that a guy is not going to come back and play, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, for God's sakes, has fallen so far in drafts. Josh Jacobs as well. Now, obviously, these guys could bite you in the butt, but if it pays off for you, it could be huge value because they're falling that far. So just keep in mind, take the appropriate risks for your team. I don't want you to take every single person that's injured in the draft or anything like that. I'm talking about take 1 or 2 risks in your draft, and it could pay off huge for you if the scenario plays out in your favor. Also, I want to mention, take a look at the actual injuries. Like if Tim Patrick tears his Achilles, do not be picking him up. If somebody, tears their ACL, do not pick those people up. Obviously, you got to take a look at the injury severity. If it looks like it could possibly be bad, but it's not a guarantee, that's the moment that I would strike on those players. Number 5 is comparing average draft positions for all the players across all websites to see who is over and undervalued in your fantasy football league on whatever platform you use. Now, what I really like using to determine this metric and get my statistics from is fantasypros.com. They have an ADP section where they average out 4 different websites. They have ESPN, Sleeper, NFL, Real-Time Fantasy Sports, and they average all of those out together to get one number. What you can do here is if your league is on ESPN, for example, you're going to find the players that offer the best value. They're being undervalued on ESPN, but their average draft position on fantasypros.com is lower. So, for example, one that sticks out to me, we'll scroll way down for this one because this one is very obvious. Where is this man? Kenneth Walker, all right? He's going as number 61 overall on ESPN, but you can see on the far right here, his average is 46.5. So that's a steal. You want to do stuff like that throughout your whole draft. Calvin Ridley being undervalued on ESPN where he's going as 38.5, so on and so forth. I'll link this down in the description below so you guys can check it out for yourself and do a bit of research whenever you please. Number 6, this one should be obvious for anybody who's been drafting for a long time, but I still see it happen to this day. Do not draft a defense or a kicker before the last 2 rounds of your fantasy football draft. All right, you're going to be switching out your defense almost every single week. You might not be switching out your kicker every single week, but you are going to be switching out your defense almost every single week if they play a good team. You're not going to play, even if it's the best defense in the league, you're not going to play them against the Chiefs. You're not going to play them against the Eagles because they're not going to score a lot of points that week. You play defenses that have good matchups, all right? And also, you want to draft kickers on teams that score a lot of points. I found to be helpful in the past. Some options that I like this year, the Jags kicker, the Lions kicker. I mean, Justin Tucker is always a solid option. McPherson, Carlson, people like that that are consistent. The team score a lot of points. I would take a risk on for the kickers. Not even really a risk. I mean, how big of a risk is a kicker in fantasy football? Just don't be taking them in the 7th round. Don't be taking them in the 8th round because you're missing out on a ton of value that you can be getting for other positions and your bench. Last but not least, number 7, draft accordingly to the style of your league. Example number 1, if you're in an ESPN league and you have to set your lineup every single week and your bench points do not count if you don't put those players in the game, you need players with high floors in your starting lineup because that's going to give you guaranteed points every single week. And then you're going to take a risk on a couple players, a couple breakout stars that could hit it big or they could flop if things go wrong. Whereas in a best ball underdog fantasy league, you're looking for the maximum upside possible every single week from these players. So you're taking a riskier option such as a Mike Williams, a DJ Moore, where you know they could easily score 25 to 28 points, 25, 30 points, who knows? Or they could have a down week and score 4 to 5 points. Where if we take a look at certain other players like Terry McLaurin, he's very consistent. DeAndre Hopkins, very consistent players, but they're probably not going to break that like 30-point threshold even if they have an amazing week. So just take into account the style of your draft, take what platform you're on into account, and take some riskier options if you're in best ball. Play it a little bit safer in ESPN though. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a thumbs up. We're almost to the fantasy football season, so I just cannot wait. Anyways, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.